Garcia.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm Janine Garcia, the Education and Engagement Coordinator with the San Antonio River Authority. Amanda, do you want me to go in and kind of tell them why we're here tonight?
Yeah, I think so. I meant to say more, but something popped up. Zoom is still kind of new to me, so. But yeah, just a quick reminder for anybody who's joining now. Thank you so much for joining us. We are recording the program this evening, so we will have a Q&A at the end of the talk, and that will all be through chat. So I will be monitoring the chats and everything like that, but we do want to hold the Q&A. We want to wait till the end if that works for everybody. And then we'll do that the last 15 minutes of the talk. So please go ahead and mute yourselves, and let's get started.
Awesome. Sounds good. Hello, everybody. We're excited to be here, excited to talk to you this evening. So we have two very special guest speakers who are going to be discussing erosion issues in the San Antonio River watershed, as well as a really unique volunteer opportunity that's going to support our engineers in this pilot project to prevent large-scale erosion in the Medina River natural area. So I'm super excited to introduce two wonderful San Antonio River Authority employees. They both work super hard to promote our mission of keeping the San Antonio River safe, clean, and enjoyable. So first up, we have Joshua Spencer, or Josh. He is a civil engineering graduate from Auburn University, and he used to work in the land development field. He currently works at the River Authority as a watershed engineer, and his role now is to use his engineering and project management skills to help keep the San Antonio River safe, clean, and enjoyable. So hello, Josh. We also have Miss Minna. Minna Paul currently serves as the Education and Volunteer Engagement Coordinator for the River Authority, and she's been with the River Authority for over 6 years now. Her role at the River Authority is to coordinate watershed education and volunteer opportunities, which I'm sure a lot of y'all recognize her for the citizens in our 4 counties that we serve, Bear, Wilson, Karnes, and Goliad. She's recently taken on the task of building and engaging over 1,100 registered volunteers of the River Warrior program. That's awesome. Her role is to help the community understand our river as a really critical and finite freshwater resource for humans and wildlife, and to inspire the community to adopt actions for healthy creeks and rivers. She has her master's in the environmental sciences and has worked with many national and international nature organizations in her 12-year career in environmental education. She grew up in India with a father who was a top official with the Forest Service and moved with her husband and 2 girls to the USA 18 years ago. She's really passionate about nature conservation and about taking kids and families out into nature. And she says she has her dream job here with the River Authority.
Yes.
Y'all are so awesome. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to both of you. Thank you guys so much.
All right. Thank you, Janine, and good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and pull up our PowerPoint here. And Janine, if you could let me know if it's pulling up.
All right, awesome. Looks great.
Perfect. Okay, so thanks again for the introduction. So my name is Josh Spencer. I'm an engineer in the Ecological Engineering Department at the San Antonio River Authority. And so a lot of what I work on is green stormwater infrastructure, low impact development, water conservation, those type of things, and then also H&H modeling. So those are kind of the majority of the tasks I'm with. There's a few projects that construction projects that I manage as well. And so this will be kind of a blend of those, and a great volunteering opportunity. And Min is going to go into that kind of more in depth as we get later in the presentation on that volunteering opportunity. And what I'm going to walk us through is kind of the erosion problem that we're seeing out at the Medina River natural area. Basically what our potential solution would be in this pilot testing, and then also kind of go into the details of what that would be. And so, move this out the way. Okay, so as you can see, large scale erosion at the Medina River natural area. Just having people in scale on this picture, you can really see these sheer walls that are developing in this gully. And then I'll have some kind of before and after kind of pictures of showing how some of these areas have progressed over time. But you can just see, they're basically kind of cutting out tree roots, incising this complete channel, and it's really losing a lot of sediment downstream, or there's a lot of erosion and sediment being transported downstream and being dumped into the Medina River. And then so what we're looking at is BDAs, or PALs, beaver dam analogs, or post-assisted log structures, to potentially use those installations in series, as a multitude of them, to potentially combat this and kind of help build up some of these sections, especially the tributaries to this tributary, and kind of stopping that erosion ahead of time before it gets to this level of erosion. And so, as I mentioned before, it's in the Medina River natural area on this map. And then this map really shows you from, I think, about 2015 to recently, when there was a construction project to fix this area. You can kind of see the head cutting, and then also the erosion upstream of this trail section. And then basically what ended up happening was that erosion connected from upstream and downstream areas. It ended up undercutting this pathway and actually taking it out completely. And so this actually had to be removed. It was a danger. It had to be blocked off and routed around. And then the Parks Department came back in with a project to put in this culvert system to help let this actual flow of water that's coming through here, that's coming from this agricultural land, and also making sure that it's sized enough to handle that flow. And then also this riprap was put in as a stabilization feature as well. And actually, having gone out there, and some of our surveyors have gone out there recently, that section is actually head cutting from this stream even further down and incising more and coming up to the stabilization. So it's a really good thing that they ended up putting that rock riprap boulder stabilization in, because without that, this may have ended up head cutting back to that culvert system and then potentially undercutting it. So these are the kind of issues that we're seeing out there on site, and we'll go through some more pictures to show downstream of this area where it's also getting worse over time. And then this is kind of this picture on the left is showing that trail when it was completely undercut, and showing this head cut and how it kind of started working its way back. And then this picture is probably a few hundred feet downstream of that area, but it's just been working its way upstream over time, eventually made its way to that trailhead. Here's some more pictures as well. The picture on the left is more so in the middle area, and you can just see it's basically cut down to the sandy bottom area, and then you can see a lot of the plant roots and trees and different things are kind of falling in over time as they're kind of being undercut, and the roots are kind of falling out. Same here on this picture on the right. This is closer to the confluence downstream with the Medina River, but you can see this tree, how it's leaning in, and all these roots are basically, as the incision of the stream is getting worse and worse, those are all kind of being impacted. And then both of these sections are closer to the downstream portion as well. But as you can see, the bottom is very silty from how it's been scoured out, and over time it's just transporting the sediment further and further away. And then it's starting to have some of these plants and trees falling in, but right now, without any structures in place, a lot of the foliage and different materials that could be used to kind of build up the section, a lot of it is just ending up downstream in the Medina. And so one of the things we're wanting to do is trying to create some structures that can help capture some of those items as they're falling in and kind of speed up the natural process of the stream to build itself back up. And again, on the picture on the left, you can just see the height of these almost vertical walls in certain places, just how incised and unstable the stream is. And then also the picture on the right showing a similar thing. And then on this slide, picture on the left, you can see this is probably a 20 to 25 foot tall wall, basically, that's almost vertical. And just over time, it's just getting deeper and deeper and eroding more and more material out. And you can just imagine how much of this material, sandy material, has basically been transported downstream. And then the picture at the right is kind of on the confluence with the Medina. And you can just see where it's not really collecting, a lot of that sediment that's being transported from upstream. It's all just pretty much, for the most part, getting washed downstream into the Medina and not really having a chance to be deposited somewhere within this tributary system. And so just from one of the times we went out there, there was a day or two after a rainstorm, and you could still see the silt that's kind of suspended in the water, and how that's kind of affecting the wildlife, the fish, different animals. So one of the things we're trying to do is reduce some of that sedimentation transport outside of that tributary system. And so I have a video here, some drone footage that we took as we walked through, and I think it's kind of helpful to be able to see some of the feature as you're walking through here. And so, you can see some of the foliage that's kind of starting to fall down in there. And, when we have those high flow storm rain events, that's when those things start to get washed, downstream and out of the system. And so you can see these vertical walls that are formed on some of these corners, especially where that water can start to get pretty high and start to eat down on there and get a lot of velocity. So a lot of these bends, you'll see the increased erosion. And so just walking through here, you can really see the scale of how much, soil and material has probably been lost over the past, probably just even 15, 20 years. It's pretty incredible to see how much, how this has been transformed over time. And so now I'll start to get into kind of some of the site layout, and then get into the actual process of doing the structures and get into the specifics behind it. So the front area is right off of 16, and there's parking in that area. The bathrooms are located in a central building right off that parking lot area. And then where we would start out meeting at would be at one of these tributaries, basically off of this main stem. So the main stem pretty much runs through this way where my cursor is dragging. And then there's some tributaries off to the side where we're going to start putting in those features so that we're protecting the trail. That's one potential added benefit of this, is there's already head cutting that is starting to approach some of those trail sections. And so if we're able to kind of use this pilot project as a way to have some co-benefits, one, we can gather some data on how effective these structures are. Two, we can also protect, some extra parks property, being some of these extra park projects from having additional cost, as well as protecting that damage and keeping it accessible for everybody that wants to come and enjoy the park. So it's about a mile walk along a paved path, basically following this red line on the exhibit. And then also we may, if anybody wants to ride their bikes, be able to just ride bikes along that trail and kind of store them at the area adjacent to the trail. But that's still something I'm having to confirm with the Parks Department, just to make sure that that is an option. But it is about a mile to most of the different sections that we would be looking at, a mile or less. And so I think this exhibit really shows really well what we're looking at. So basically, we're almost in section B probably of the stage of what we're looking at. We can see those very high vertical walls. You have some vegetation that's kind of starting to fall in over time. And so what happens with actual beaver dams is they start to accumulate that woody debris and different material, and they start to kind of build those sections up. They kind of catch more and more of those elements as they start to fall in. And then over time, they start to capture some of that sedimentation that's happening upstream. And so that starts to raise up the elevation of the floodplain again. And it also starts to just basically fill back in. And so as you can see, as you kind of progress down to the picture D, as you're catching more and more of that material, that sediment starts to come up, then vegetation starts to grow in again. So it starts to infill with more trees, more woody debris, which in turn starts to catch more of the upstream sediment or woody debris that's flowing in. And so you start to keep most of the things within a system, basically in a beaver controlled dam area. And over time, they basically restore that former floodplain that was originally there. And so what we want to kind of do is mimic that process, but with a man-made approach, by capturing some of that woody debris, using mesquite posts locally sourced from the park. And the Parks Department will be cutting some of those, using some existing willow cuttings off of the Medina River Natural Area, and basically weaving those in between to help stabilize those installations as well. And so we'll kind of go through all that, but what we're really trying to do is get from this section B picture, which is where we're at, which is a severely incised stream. And we really want to restore the ecosystem. We want to restore the floodplain and get it back to what it wants to be naturally. And so here's some pictures that we'll start kind of going through some of these installations. And so you'll actually, you would end up driving posts basically at an angle through this section. And so you'll also kind of fill that area in with as much woody debris, foliage as you can find. And so basically you want, for those low flow storms, any sediment that gets picked up, any small branches or leaves, you want all of that to kind of start to build up in these in these spaces that you're trying to constrict. So you want that water to basically leave everything behind as it's going through, and eventually over time start to build up. And then the process would be, as these kind of are hopefully doing their jobs, some of them may get blown out during storm events, but the whole kind of point of this process is to put them in series so that if one does fail, it will just end up flowing downstream and catching on the next one. And so if you have a bunch of them in place, basically they can kind of act as safeguards behind each other. And this is really a low tech, as they call it, installation. It's not designed, engineered ahead of time. It's really kind of a in-field installation. You find sections that look good, and there's a few different approaches to it, but you basically just want to make sure that you're capturing enough cross sections in there at the bends and during some of the runways, some of the straight runways, that you're going to have enough coverage basically to capture everything. And then also have some safeguards in place. And so one of the neat things too, it's just the ability of using our natural resources that are on site. They have a lot of mesquite trees on site that they're willing to help provide for the installation. And they're also willing to provide some post drivers and sledgehammers, things like that, so we can help drive it in. Some areas of, and this is where the kind of on-site type of design is going to come into play. Some of the areas are somewhat rocky as we go through that process. And so, there will be kind of figuring out, what areas we can put them in, and then other areas where we may have to find some, on-site solutions in order to really make it work in some of those rocky areas. And so also, this is a good example of using those willow clippings as stabilization. And so just weaving those through, getting those pinned at the edges. And so as they start to kind of grow in there, they can really kind of help hold everything in place. And you just pack as much, foliage, leaves, things of that nature into those voids, just to really try to restrict it as much as possible, and just try to capture as much of that sediment and whatever you can capture in there, just to kind of help build everything up in those incised banks. And so, as I've kind of been talking about, using forest debris, using leaves, as you can see here, they have a lot of kind of more so dead branches, dead leaves, basically weaved in through here. And so it's kind of find whatever is nearby, kind of accumulate it, and do as much as you can with it while getting these posts driven in here. And so these will help kind of hold in, during those storm events as the water is running through these cross branches basically through that area. And so a lot of this is really just kind of manpower, just moving things around that are free and have already fallen down, using whatever we can find. And the Parks Department's been kind enough to provide a lot of the material, and then the rest of it that kind of fill in some of the gaps. We'll have some of the mesquite branch leftovers to kind of weave through here, but we'll have other trees and dead branches that have fallen out on site that we can use as well to help get the job done. And so these are some good examples on the left. As you can see on the left side of this, these are as-built installations. And then on the right side column, these are 1 year post-installation. And so on A and B, you can see where this flow is coming downstream in this picture, how basically on the left and right side, you can see where water was pretty much free flowing. And then 1 year post, it actually caught a lot of woody debris here. And on this left side, you can actually see where it's filled in and it's kind of started to build up. And so you can see right here where you started to already build up the elevation over here. And it's kind of starting to already change the morphology and flow of the river. And then on C and D, you can see as well, they have these posts driven down. And they have like one large log through here with some clippings. And then you can see over time with the water flowing this way. And so on this picture, you're actually in the upstream side of the flow. You can see how many different logs have actually ended up being caught here and other debris. And so this one's actually had a pretty good size change in elevation. And it's also started to form kind of another bank over here, as you can tell. And then on picture E and F as well, you can see where things have kind of started to accumulate somewhat upstream of this structure. It probably doesn't have as much that it's actually captured, but it's held up pretty well in this picture. And you still see most of the cross bracing and the logs are still in place. And so it's still doing its job and hasn't blown out yet. And then this also on the right side is an example. And as you can see in these pictures, there's these yellow, red, dark red dots, white ones mixed in through here. And so they also have these kind of zoomed in areas as well. And you can see how many actual structures they have in place. So for debris jams, they have 15 of those. For bank post-assisted log structures, they have 73 of those. And then for a midstream post-assisted log structure, they have 29 of those. So, for this stream section, which I'm trying to believe that's about 3,000 meters of section. They actually have 130 total features to there. So they're pretty densely packed in through here. And really the main intent behind these post-assisted log structures or beaver dam analogs is to have a whole bunch of them in series. And that's really how they become so effective. And it's a lot cheaper, potentially to do this over time to fill something, that's such a massive, large scale erosion site than coming in with a large, expensive construction project that's just going to bring in a bunch of fill and, a bunch of heavy equipment and maybe do more damage than it's worth and spend, potentially millions of dollars on that fix. Whereas this is, having some volunteer time, some local products on site. It's a lot less invasive. We're using natural elements. We're not doing anything unnatural. We're just kind of speeding up nature's process with this. And so that's really what we're wanting to do is kind of, if I go back to, sorry, let me go back. I really like this diagram. It really shows, what the stage where we're at in this picture B right here, and where we're really wanting to get back to is to basically in our first initial installations, we want to start working towards D. And then the hope would be that if these are effective over time, and we are able to start to repair some of this incision, that we can come back and add some more installations in, and then after maybe a few rounds of this, maybe we're able to build back up to what we have in picture F. That would be the the long-term ideal goal if everything was to work out as intended. And so we're really wanting to see if this system has any potential to work, because as we can, from what we've seen, we don't think that anybody in Texas has really done this before or tried this. And so we really want to see if this is something that we can use here in our San Antonio River watershed, just to see, if this is viable, because there's other areas where we have, a lot of erosion here in San Antonio and in our overall San Antonio River Authority jurisdiction basins. And, if this is something that could work, this could be, implemented or utilized universally potentially, and at a lot lower cost than some other restoration features or heavy machinery type fixes. So in the areas or instances where we maybe don't have the funding to do large scale construction projects, maybe that's an area where we can potentially use these post assisted log structures and volunteers to kind of help their own local community watershed. And so here we go with some more examples with some structures, and here you can kind of see some more of the in-stream flowing water structure installations. Ours should be a lot easier since our tributary creek is ephemeral, and so we won't have to be in water wading through trying to put things in. So that makes the installation process a lot easier for it, and we can wait for things to be dry and in between construction installation periods. And also it makes it a lot easier for our survey crew. We've been out there basically surveying elevations over time here for the past few months. And so hopefully if we're able to start doing this pilot project, we'll be able to stake out some basically metal rods for some elevation checks. So over time we can start to see, are we starting to build back up those elevations within the tributary? And so that's a way for us to kind of actually get a check of, is this working? Is this thing that we're looking at actually going to work? And then here on the right as well, just another example of volunteers working on some installations, and those posts, which are typically about 4 to 6 inches in diameter, being driven in, and then having those branches weave through as much foliage and other things that you can pack in there basically. And then some more examples as well, which going back to the diagram, if you have some of the midstream sections, some of your installations may be at a V-shaped angle like this, especially if you're wrapping the willows in. It's a pretty good shape from all the literature that I've seen. And then some of the sections where you potentially have some higher velocities coming through, they've elected to kind of go with the more straight across sections. And then as well on the bank kind of installations where you have some twists and turns within the tributary, you'll kind of have to angle them in certain ways just to make sure that you're not going to have too much shear stress on the structure and push it off too easily. And so yeah, as I've been talking about with the long-term goals, it's really a low-tech restoration plan. It's not really meant to be designed ahead of time. Really, it's a lot of decisions where you're out on site and basically working our way through one tributary to the tributary at a time, basically, until we are able to finish those up. And then the ideal goal would then be to come back down the main stem and start to work on that as well. But we would want to work on the side areas at first, because those would be a little bit easier to construct. And then also we'll be able to kind of capture and start to build those back up and stop that erosion from happening. That main stem is already so eroded, as you can tell from the pictures, that is definitely a very long-term process to fill that back up. But there are some of those side tributary areas where we can really make a difference and fill it back up. But yeah, if we can stop those future erosion issues and protect the trails, also while learning some valuable information about this, I mean, that's a win-win for everyone involved. And so, like I've said before, it's the first known, attempt really to do this in Texas. It's pretty common in the Pacific Northwest, especially where they actually have beavers that can, help out with these. So a lot of times what they're doing with the beaver dam analogs is they're really just kind of developing and building these installations and getting them started. And then the beavers actually come along and they'll kind of take it over as their own. And so they're kind of, starting up that habitat for them, which, I mean, that would be awesome if we had that here. I mean, that would be so cool to go out there and kind of, build that habitat and then kind of see them come in and make it their own. But, hopefully we can kind of use their skills and what they've shown us in nature, and, what they've done, over time has worked. And hopefully we can, mimic that and kind of bring their skills over here to Texas. And then this is, if this does end up being successful, I mean, this is, something that could be implemented more widely. And, it would definitely be something that could be talked about, at different conferences and things like that. So, there is a chance to be involved with something that's kind of, experimental or cutting edge here in our San Antonio basin. And so with that, I'm going to hand off to Minna, and then I think we'll have a Q&A session after that.
Joshua, do you want to let folks ask questions at this time, just on everything that you said, and then we could go to the volunteer part at the end? Is that okay, Amanda?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. That's so amazing and inventive, and I think it's so great that you guys have the freedom to experiment and see if this works or not. I mean, it's so grassroots, it's just everything's so local, and I just think that's just so cool. Such a cool thing about it. I heard you say at the beginning that there's some agricultural land nearby. And I was wondering if you guys think, the runoff from that area is the main source of erosion to the river and the tributaries.
Yes, so actually that is just based on the aerials going back, the oldest one was back probably about 40 or 50 years ago. And you can just tell the difference in between, part of that area used to be kind of more so tree laden and had some more, established vegetation, just upstream of that trail area. And then at some point, a lot of that was cut down and has been used for agricultural land. And that is most likely that extra source of runoff over time. You start to see it develop more and more as that, additional runoff has been coming through. And then you can tell the previous basically drainage crossing that was going underneath that trail was completely just way undersized for how much runoff actually comes off of that agricultural land.
Right. So that's a huge environmental impact that they're having. Is there any way to sort of not mitigate, but get their help at all with any of this?
So I neglected to mention they have actually built a detention pond on their land to help mitigate their increase in runoff. But even with that detention pond that they did construct, there's still, erosion issues, basically. I think just even downstream of that detention pond, it's still releasing at a higher rate than, it used to, previous to the agricultural land.
Right.
But I know that the Parks Department did work with them, and the city made some fixes on their end, and then I know that property owner did as well on their end. And so hopefully this solution that they came up with, works. So far, like I said, this has kind of started eating and head cutting a little bit back up to the rock riprap area, but it hasn't started progressing past that so far. So hopefully long term that starts to fix some of the issues.
Right. And I imagine with that land being above, that you're also seeing all kinds of fertilizer and chemicals and fungicides, that's coming with the runoff into the riverbed as well.
Yeah, I would imagine. And then, yeah, I mean, that's, eventually working its way into the Medina River. So, that's definitely not ideal. And, if we're able to kind of start, building up and capturing, some of the sediment and, things that are running downstream, at least we can hopefully kind of start to capture some of that, and keep it there and not have it flow into the Medina. So that's like another potential kind of benefit. There's some areas kind of in here where it's kind of naturally a tree has fallen in, and then some other branches have kind of caught, and it's actually started to kind of do what we're wanting to do. In those areas, you can really see where it's starting to kind of level back up on the elevation wise. So hopefully we can kind of, install some more areas like that and really improve. And but yeah, that's definitely a concern, is just how much of that that extra stuff from that agricultural land is just flowing, down into the river.
Right. The photos that you showed, the example photos, is that from this site, all those photos? Or is that from another project?
The examples were all from another project.
Okay. Right, because this is kind of just getting started, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we actually have not done our first pilot installation yet.
Okay.
So all of the example photos were pretty much all from the Pacific Northwest.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Then all of the, erosion pictures were from our site, but yeah, all the examples were from other areas.
Right. So do you guys have to bring in any of the material? You mentioned using all the local tree branches, the willow and the mesquite, but is there enough there for you guys to work with just on site, or are you finding or thinking you'll have to truck some of that stuff in?
I know to start off with, we will have enough material, depending on how, I guess, robust, our volunteer program is and how quickly we're working through there. That's when we might have to have that, discussion of, getting more, either volunteer help to gather more materials, or, getting some of that stuff, imported in. But to start off with, for our first few months, for sure, we'll have enough material. The Parks Department has been, over the past 5 or 6 months, been collecting material and stockpiling it on site so that they have it ready. And then they'll be able to basically, on their mules, take it over to the site location and drop that material off when we're having installation volunteer days. Right.
So yeah, I wanted to ask you about the days you have for volunteers to come out. Do you have like big event days where large groups of people can come out, or do you have like a weekly or monthly setup for that sort of thing?
I think I'll defer to Minna on that, but I think we are going to kind of go over that at the end, or over the last few slides.
I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, one more question for you that we had is, are you guys planning or thinking that you'll need to do like some sort of riparian restoration, bringing in native plants to help hold that soil in place?
I think as for right now, we're just planning on putting in the post-assisted log structures.
Right.
And then, if, we were able to, to have, funding at another point or, have some materials donated, then at that time, that's something that we
Okay.
could consider. But kind of starting out, we'll probably work with this. And then, if we do start to, see results, and then maybe there's ways that we can kind of start to tweak it like you're suggesting, and, make it, more effective. Because I mean, that's only going to help. The more, ground cover, the more vegetation that we can get established is only going to help.
Right. Yeah. And I see you guys are just getting started. It'd be really cool to see where we are with this a year from now,
Mm-hmm.
Very exciting.
Yeah. And we appreciate you guys listening to us, and, for the people that want to help, we're so appreciative. And I think it's just so cool to be able to really work with the community on this and to really have that kind of collaboration. And we're all going to be kind of learning this at the same time. So it's a really cool feature.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what makes it so exciting and dynamic, So I think that's it on our questions for now.
Amanda, I think we had one more question from Peter in the chat.
Okay.
He was asking any thoughts of using like bunch grasses that are used for erosion. And I'm not familiar with this one, vetiver bunch grass, if I'm saying that correctly.
Honestly, I have not looked into that or thought about that, but that is a good suggestion, Peter. So that is definitely something that we can look at, definitely going forward.
Yeah, bunch grass is used in a lot of erosion control across the world, in arid areas. So, but I would start with our natives first.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll be good to go behind the dam or something, or with the dam, complement the dam as it collects.
Okay.
Thoughts.
No, thank you. I mean, we're definitely, trying to figure, especially because, with our different climate, there's going to be things that we're going to need to adapt that are different from the Pacific Northwest installation. So these things that you're bringing up are really good to start thinking about, so we can kind of, optimize the installations for our climate.
Right. And, it would be interesting to see what naturally comes back in those areas
Mm-hmm.
as the sediment and the organic matter is built back up,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is kind of interesting because, as you're having those, storms, and you're getting kind of that soil that's kind of collecting, and, hopefully you're going to have those different seeds getting kind of settled in different places, and hopefully things will start to kind of naturally settle in. But, obviously there's, especially with, some of the areas in here just might need a little more stabilization to really give it kind of that jump start.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. All right, Minna, I think we're ready for you to jump in if you're ready.
All right. Yeah, Joshua will move the slides to the volunteer part.
Yes.
Okay, so we are keeping fingers crossed to bringing beavers back to our river, right, Joshua?
Hopefully.
Yeah, that was my motivation. Like, let's get these beavers back. Sorry, joking. All right, so let me give you a little background, everyone, about how this came about. When I took over the volunteer program with the River Authority, the first thing I did was to go back to our different teams, whether it's the Environmental Sciences Department or the Engineering Department or our Park Operations Department. And there's so much deep-rooted science work that our teams do. Very little is known outside of our organization. The community really doesn't know the depth to which the kind of work that we do. And so this was the perfect opportunity to kind of bring some of that science-based work that we do to the community and see if we can get them to support in some of the work that we do. So the process started with me saying, okay, what is it that we do that we can bring the community in to support, so that we can work together and make great things happen. So so I have to say a huge thank you to our engineering team. Aaron Teague leads our engineering team, and Joshua, very, very kindly actually took on the role to do this with us. But Aaron Teague was the one who said, this is something that has been done in the Pacific Northwest. Why don't, this is a pilot project, which she, looking at all the data, she feels like it will, they felt that this could work here. And so that is how this whole pilot project came into being. And my hope is that with the help of volunteers and community that understand the land and the needs of it will come together, and then we can actually show that we can bring, almost, reduce, or if not mitigate, some of the issues of erosion on our watershed. So this is a little bit of the background on how this happened. So, so it could work, it could not work, but the point is that if we can get folks doing and getting the land to work like it should, I feel like we will be in a good place to see if this is something we can do low cost, but at the same time with community involvement, we can make things happen, starting off at the Medina River natural areas. So starting off, what we are thinking here is to have volunteers do 2-hour shifts, because it is, it is going to be a strenuous work. So we want to keep the volunteer hours to the minimum. We will be doing a total of 4-hour work days. It'll be, at this time, we plan only to do it once a month. But the hours will be 4 hours shifts with 2-hour shifts, one set of volunteers that will work in 2 hours, and then the other for the the later two. The hope is to install at least 2 structures per volunteer session. And those would be predefined on where we'll be doing it by Joshua and the team. And then we get out there and all the material will be there, and we volunteers come in and install them. We will be looking at the seasons to see when it's most comfortable. When in the warmer weather, we'll do it earlier in the mornings, and in when it gets kind of colder, maybe later in the afternoon. So we hope to kind of move it around to times that will be the most convenient for our volunteers. And so if you want to move to the next slide for me, Joshua, thank you. So definitely, as you all know, when you're volunteering, we definitely want to, take care of all the safety precautions, definitely wear long pants, long sleeve shirts, hats for heat protection, gloves, sturdy shoes. And I know Joshua mentioned that the Medina River natural area, for the volunteers, they also have some snake guards and things like that, which, we could bring that in for the safety of our volunteers, definitely, hydration stations. And so, considering all of these factors, we want to get our volunteers out there safely to be able to help with this mission. Next slide, Joshua. And so basically what we plan to do is Josh and his team and us, we plan to have a prototype built so that volunteers can take a look at what we are thinking of doing with it, sometime in July, or sometime in July, and then probably beginning August to have our first site visit for volunteers to come and actually see the site, to just kind of assess for yourself the rigors of a workday, distance from the restrooms. It is about a mile away from the restrooms, and you have to either walk or bike to that area. And then tentatively, what we're looking now, the days that work out would be probably the last Thursday of every month. That's what we are looking at. Potentially this could change, but tentatively that's what we're looking at for this volunteer work day. Of course, everybody will be signing waivers for this. And so we are excited we have a lot of folks that have already attended a training with us. And so it's so cool that we can bring this project to your volunteer a group, so that, if there are folks that, y'all have your own lands and would like to try it in your own land, and be part of this to see how well it works. I think it's a very neat opportunity for the community to come and be part of this pilot project that we are doing very closely with the engineering department at the River Authority. So that being said, it's new. We planned this when COVID. In fact, we were supposed to do it the time that COVID hit. Is we were in the planning, and then COVID happened. So what we went ahead and did is we did an online training so that we could get folks already to know what this is, so that they can see if that is something that they would like to help us with. We are also looking to see if we can get Boy Scouts involved. I know Peter and I had a conversation about that, get some younger folks involved in that as well, maybe universities. The more people that we have, the more dams that we can build. And so that is the plan. I hope that kind of explains, gives you an idea of what we're looking at with this project. So if you had any questions for me, I would welcome this at this time.
It's amazing what a large group of volunteers can do in a very short amount of time.
I absolutely agree. And I know Pam works with the Headwaters, and I know the great work they do there. And I know that there are organized groups already doing some great work. So I'm, just thinking that if this is something that we, get into, there might be a lot of other groups too that might want to come and support. And, we might do it quicker than we think that, we can achieve. I really feel like it's interesting. It's a great pilot study. So we hope that, we can spread it out into the community and get a lot of volunteers to come and help us with this.
Right. So you mentioned there would need to be a training that volunteers need to do first.
So the training that basically we just introduced this whole concept virtually through just like what Joshua did for us today. And then we would have a site visit. So we would have a prototype build so they can actually see what, we are hoping to do with the post-assisted analog site. And then after that, on site will be, the work will be, and like he said, things will change. So each dam might be different. So, there's nothing that we can only give you a overall, idea. And then I think as we are on the site, we'll decide how to go forward as well. Yes. Joshua, am I saying that right?
No,
we don't need to have one more training, right? This is just introducing, and then the prototype that we would have built.
Yeah, I think the first volunteer session, basically, the first 15 minutes of it or so might just be kind of going over that prototype, how it was installed, kind of giving everyone a chance to see, the thought process behind it. And then, the rest of it could be, basically the rest of the work session. If somebody's already been through this presentation, they pretty much get the gist of it. And, getting on site and seeing that pilot, should give them the rest of, the tools to start working with it.
And Amanda, I can tell you, the first time that I went to see this site, Janine and I had gone, our jaws dropped. I mean, it's unbelievable, that site. I mean, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It starts off real small, and then you have a huge ravine, right, further down. Just to see that, just took our breath away. So if we can make, a big difference in this, it'll be an amazing, project that we take on.
Yeah.
And Aaron Teague, who leads that, our engineering team, really hopes that we can showcase this to the rest of Texas and say, okay, look at this, we've made this happen. And, who knows, the whole state might then adopt it and say, hey, this is a really neat way to mitigate some of the huge erosion issues we have on our watershed. So, and, we know our Texas Stream Teamers who are on there, Lisa and all of that, I'm sure, just the impact of sediment in our waterways and on our, biodiversity, on our aquatic species is so high. This would really be a game changer if we can use this project and do it all over, mitigating some of those issues.
Right, right. This is so cool. I'm so excited you guys are doing this.
And then if we get beavers, that would be the cherry on the cake.
That would be the
topic.
bonus. They'll just move right in.
So Joshua actually wanted to call this, the post, I don't know, PALS. He wanted to call it PALS. I think that's not fun. Let's call it Beaver Dam. And, get everybody's interest. That's what's going to get everybody here. That was crafty.
Well, a friend of mine asked me, oh, so they're building dams for beavers. They're making homes for them. Oh,
that was a ploy. That was a ploy to get everybody's interest. Like, let's do this together.
I think it's working. I'm gonna ask the participants if you guys have any more questions for our speakers tonight. This was a great presentation, guys. I was writing down my questions as we went along, but you answered all of them, like in the presentation. So I'm sure you can anticipate what people are curious about, Yeah.
Definitely helps me on the second run through. Start to,
Oh, okay.
gap.
Yeah, sure. This is your first sort of run through of this?
No, it's the second. We did it with our River Warriors. So we had a whole bunch. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Well, always let us know as master naturalists what we can do to help, broadcast this program for your upcoming volunteer days, because I think a lot of people would really like to get involved in this.
And I'm thinking, Amanda, that a lot of our Texas Stream teamers here would probably want to go and test water quality now there to see exactly what you all were talking about right now. So I won't be surprised if Lisa now says, let's go test over there and to see what are we seeing over there,
I think so too. I imagine this is going to help mitigate some of the pollution that's coming from the runoff from agricultural areas, but yeah, definitely. I know you guys are documenting where we are now, but it'll be just so cool to see all of the things that this project can help with. Not just erosion control, but just down the line, all kinds of things.
Yeah. And Amanda, what I would ask everyone here is if you are interested in this, to please contact me, because as we go into next steps, if I have your email and your contact and your interest, then when we do a site visit or when we schedule our days, that means you're in my list and I can send out that email. So please contact me with interest. If you have friends, family that would like to be part of this project, please direct them to me so that we can, as soon as we have our first site visit planned, you would get the email about it. So please direct them to me with interest.
Perfect. And I know your email is mpaul. Correct?
Yes, at sariverauthority.org. Yeah, and I can put that in the chat as well. There it is. Thank you, Peter.
Great.
Okay, that's correct. Yes. Thank you, Peter.
I see it. Yes. Okay.
So, and I think everybody over here knows that Peter and Cheryl are the liaisons with Master Naturalists to the River Authority. So, definitely everything that we do will come to you through them. And if you have any questions or anything that you would like to convey to us, please reach out to them. We have, monthly meetings and we share a lot of what we do and hear from what y'all are doing as well. So please feel free to reach out to them as well.
Right. Yeah. We always have a section of our meetings where we talk about what's going on in the River Authority because you guys are doing so much cool stuff.
Yes, we do.
Well, thank you guys. And thank you, Janine, as well, for helping make this happen. You know, just this presentation tonight was a great presentation and I just think so creative and inventive and, you know, sort of working with what you got. I mean, I love all those ideas. I know we all do. So thank you guys so much for doing this tonight. It's really exciting.
Thank you. And we truly believe that it is along with the community that we can do all the great work that we do. So we just cannot do what we do without, the community support. So this is very valuable to us. And the Master Naturalists of, like I said earlier, you are our top tier volunteers, so much of, so much knowledge, and we really bank on you for a lot of the work that we do as well. So thank you so much for being great partners with us.
Oh, that's great. We love it.
Yes, thanks for your time, and just even throwing out the ideas, that is super helpful because there's looking at it for so long and just reading literature, it really helps to get those other perspectives in, because we really do want to be innovative with this. We don't want to just simply copy and paste what other people have done, but if there's improvements we can make, it's really great just working with the community on this.
Absolutely. And master naturalists and all of us, have all kinds of ideas. So you'll be hearing some feedback, I'm sure.
Definitely.
We love that, Amanda. We really do, and there's so much of experience and knowledge, people that have lived here on this land for years and years, so there might be things that we are not seeing at all. And we would love to hear that so that we can incorporate.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, you guys. This was really great.